All right, well, hello, everyone. It's great to be back. I'm so happy to have this opportunity just to reflect on what has even happened in my life over this past year. I was with you last year on September 8th, so pretty much 1 year, and Derek invited me to come and share an update. So I hadn't seen the presentation Derek gave, and I thought his graphic with the indoctrination side was super interesting because that's basically what I'm going to talk about. So for those of you who weren't here last year, I am a faculty member at the University of Florida. Next slide. There you go. So if you Googled me, you would find me looking very professional and whatnot. But far more important than being a faculty member at the University of Florida is that I'm a parent. I have 3 children. My daughter is now 18. She's a freshman at UF. So I'm worrying about a whole nother scenario of indoctrination. My son is 17. He's currently in Romania, which I'll talk about in a minute, on an exchange program. And then my youngest is 8 years old. So last year when I was here, I shared with you that my boys got me in trouble with the school district. My older son was going part-time to GHS, which seems to be a common, I didn't know his son went to GHS, so a common denominator. He had been going part-time, and he would hang out in the library when he'd have some extra time before he had to ride his bicycle to UF to do a dual enrollment course. And in that time, he found some books in the library, took a picture, and he's like, "Mom, I bet you these books aren't good." I look at the titles, I'm like, "Yeah, I bet you're right. Why don't you bring them home? Let me look at them." So he brings them home, I look at them. One of them was this Beyond Magenta, which is a book of memoirs of transgendered young people, and it's their life stories. And one particular story, are there kids in here? No. Okay, good. One of the stories was a man talking about that when he was 6 years old, he'd perform oral sex on the neighbors. He was having sex by the age of 8. People told him he was too young, but he thought it was fun, and that was just part of his childhood. And I was just flabbergasted that the school would have a book that would normalize that. There was no like, "Hey, if this is happening to you, this is child abuse, call this hotline." There's nothing. It was just part of his narration. So I'm like, okay, yeah, this is not good, right? So I'm very busy. So I sit on my table to figure out what am I going to do about this. So the following week or so, 10 days later, it was back to school night for my 8-year-old who was 6 at the time. And it starts in the library. And I show up late because I'm busy. And I have to sit in the back. So I'm sitting next to the stacks of books. So I'm like, I wonder what's in the elementary school. It's been a while. So I'm looking through the books. And I come across A is for Activist. And I wasn't searching for books. Like, literally, I spent 10 seconds to look for a book and pulled it off the shelf. And it was an ABC book, clearly a pro-Marxist book. It had like L is for LGBTQ, Q is for queer, T is for trans, trains, and tiaras too. And then Z is for Zapatista. Now, I teach Spanish at the university. I'm married to an Argentine, so I have maybe more than average knowledge of things that happened in the Spanish-speaking world. And I knew that the Zapatistas were a Marxist group in southern Chiapas, Mexico, that violently overthrew their local government to install their Marxist regime. Z for Zapatista, the guy was wearing a balaclava, like a ski mask, in a child's ABC book. So I go up to the school librarian, I'm like, "Why do you have this book here?" And she's like, "It's age appropriate, ages 4 to 7. I'm like, "I don't care what your computer says. Like, why do you have this book here?" She's like, "Well, I don't read every book that comes in the library." I said, "Well, can you read this one? It's an ABC book." And she's like, "I'm not gonna do that." I'm like, "Can you read this page? Z is for Zapatistas." I'm like, "Do you know who they are?" Of course she did not. So an administrator came over, and she's like, "If you have a problem with our books, there's a protocol that you have to follow. You have to file a form and send it via email to the principal." I said, "Well, I don't want to do that. I want to have a conversation." They wouldn't talk to me. So long story short, I submitted that form. And these are just other books that I'll mention, maybe perhaps, that I ended up finding in the libraries and challenging. But I submitted that form, and the first follow-up I had about submitting the form to the librarian, so I submitted the one for the the high school books, and I submitted a form for the elementary school book. The first follow-up I get is a phone call from a WUFT reporter. Next slide. Back one. No, back a slide. Yeah, from a WUFT reporter who was doing a story on banning LGBTQ books in Alachua County, and that I was the first to try to ban a book in the community, and she was doing a story on it. I was like, well, wait a minute, I'm not trying to ban a book. I'm simply asking them to evaluate a book for age appropriateness. I said, I don't want my identity being put out there in the media. I was like, is that what you're gonna do? She's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I'm requesting you don't do that. She's like, I think it's relevant to the story. So she runs with Crystal Marull, 44 of Gainesville, blah, blah, blah. Marull is a University of Florida professor, coordinator of the online Spanish program, who has a master's degree in education, a registered Republican. So it was very shortly thereafter where my life got flipped inside out. My colleagues canceled me. 5 of them put it into text messages that were very similarly worded, that they were no longer going to be interacting with me or speaking with me. I said, well, don't you want to have a coffee and hear my perspective? No, they did not. Neighbors canceled me. Multiple articles were written about me. And then I embarked in a, I don't know, what are we, 2 years into it now? Campaign basically to get this kind of inappropriate, indoctrinating content out of the school libraries. So I challenged the other books, which were highly inappropriate, very graphic pornographically, as well as lots of transgendered books in the elementary school. Well, the process for the school was you had to go through like a hearing. You had to show up as if it were a court. You had to call witnesses, present evidence, interview the witnesses, cross-examine the witnesses, make opening statements, submit evidence. It was a huge sham. And it was a kangaroo court because it was me versus the staff attorney of the district, her assistant, the hearing officer. She had an assistant. And then the staff attorney would basically tell the hearing officer what to do. The hearing officer would object to everything I was doing, which is not the role of a hearing officer. And it was just clearly insane. It was at that point where I'm like, I need help. So that's when I reached out to Identify Ministries as one of the, it was recommended by another journalist who was actually far more supportive. She said, I think you need to talk to Derek. I'm like, I don't know who Derek is, but if you can help me, I'll talk to him. I need help. And he didn't share it with you tonight, but he had a very similar story a couple years prior with books in his son's school. So he knew exactly what I was up against and what I was going through. But he was basically like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, I don't know. But the one thing I definitely need is prayer. I said, this is clearly a spiritual battle. Because if this was just adults talking about, is a book appropriate, it would have been handled so differently. But clearly, I kicked the hornet's nest, and the demons are after me. And I need help. I need people to show up these hearings and pray, because there are bad things going down. So at these hearings, they started recording. I didn't know they were recorded for the first 2 hearings I went through. I didn't know they were recorded. They were recording them and sending them to their activist groups. Their activist groups would make clips about me, circulate it on social media, and then the school district would circulate those clips using school email to their teachers, which, as you can imagine, created a very toxic environment for my children. But that strategy of theirs backfired. I probably shared this last time. I'm actually catching up to where I finished last time and taking it from there. But in this clip, which I'm about to play, I had challenged a book called George. George was in the elementary school library, indicated for grades 3 to 5, 3rd to 5th, and it was a chapter book about a 4th grader who was secretly transitioning male to female behind his mother's back, and he had a little friend who was helping him do it by giving him clothes and taking him out with her uncle where he could dress as a girl and nobody would know. It talks about the Trevor Project. It talks about how to find information online to transition, how you can get surgically transitioned. But equally disturbing, there was a 14-year-old brother in the book who found this boy's magazines, which are magazines about girls, and he's like, oh, I thought you had porn in there. I wanted to see what my little bro was into. And then another part, he's like, I thought you had dirty magazines. Clearly inappropriate content for a 3rd grader to be reading about pornography and dirty magazines. So in the hearing, I called the vice principal, because he was one of the ones who evaluated the book, And I called him as a witness because he seemed to show hesitancy, saying, I think this book belongs in the older grades. So I'm like, great, somebody who has some sense about them. He also was a congregant at the church I had been attending at that time. So I'm like, all right, if anybody's going to say what I need to be said, it's going to be this guy. So I called him into the hearing, and I asked him. Go ahead and play the clip. I believe you two have children, is that correct?
Yes.
What ages are they? Can you put it louder?
18, 16, and 13.
And would you find it appropriate if they brought this book home and we're talking about dirty magazines and pornography in a K-5 environment?
I think it would open up a conversation that we would have.
So you think the book is appropriate in the K-5 environment, even though it's referencing pornography and dirty magazines?
I think in my, what I voted for was that it would be for the 3 to 5 age group.
Which would be what ages?
So that would be 8 to 10, 12.
So you think an 8-year-old would be appropriate to be reading about pornography and dirty magazines from school?
Yes.
I was just as shocked as you all. I'm like, I can't believe he said yes. I can't believe he, I thought he would wiggle his way out of it, being like, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. But he said, yeah, 8-year-olds should read about porn in school. Anyway, I have to fast forward because I have so much to tell you. That clip went viral. I got a cease and desist letter from the school district saying I was harassing school district members because I orchestrated a line of questioning that made him answer in that way so I could make a soundbite and make it go viral on social media. As if I had those skills. One, I'm not a lawyer, so my questioning clearly wasn't the most articulate questioning. Two, if I can make things go viral, which actually turns out maybe I have a skill for making things go viral, but I did not know I had this skill set. I just don't know how to orchestrate it and harness it, but it seems to be going, as you'll see. So anyway, I continued on with these hearings. They were not going well for me. I never won. As you can imagine, it was a stacked deck. I even called, on the next slide, the final hearing. So after each hearing, they changed the rules.
Involved in the proceedings?
Well, you don't have to play it yet. Well, you can go back to it, but don't play it yet in a minute. After each hearing, they changed the rules because clearly they didn't like the outcome. I mean, the outcome was in their favor, but they looked stupid doing it. So they kept changing, okay, you can't call elementary school staff as witnesses. Now you can't call any GHS or any Alachua County School District employees as witnesses. So in the very final hearing, the only people I could call as witnesses were people outside of the school district. So I called our local senator, Keith Perry, to the stand. And now you can play how they treated him. Yeah.
Parents involved in the proceedings, or do we want them to be intimidated by an attorney that's being paid to intimidate parents, not paid to investigate the book?
Mr. Perry, to accuse me of intimidating. That's absolutely inappropriate ad hominem attack. Excuse me. You should know better than that. I would object to that.
Let me explain. These proceedings are in lieu of statutes that were set forth by the Florida legislature to the school district, and the school district set policy based on the statute.
The laws that were passed by the Florida legislature and have been told by one school district, I think a librarian, that they were not going to abide by these. And of course, if you read Marx's books, you understand why they would say they weren't going to abide by laws instead of going out and changing those. But the laws that we passed did not intend to have it where a parent was put on trial.
So, go Keith Perry. I love that man. I am so grateful. And maybe it's a little too much, but I tell him it was for me like the metaphor of where like Jesus comes into your life and takes like the stand and gets like whatever. I'm like, you came into like my small world and you took the slings and arrows of this school district for me. We still didn't win, but anyway, that was the last hearing I attended. Probably I shared that with you last time I was here. So then I appealed to the state magistrate. There's a process in the legislation that if you're not satisfied with the outcome of a book challenge, you can apply for a special magistrate from Tallahassee to make some sort of determination. So I did that for 4 of the challenges. And Go ahead, next slide. And nothing happened. Nothing, like nothing. They contacted me after the first one, got some extra information, and then they ghosted me. Yeah. So I turned to, well, Keith Perry, again, bless his heart, he said, listen, Crystal, I'm going to give you some money for a lawyer. I was like, thank you, sir, because I have none. So he put in some money, and he called Jeff Childers. I don't know if you guys know who Jeff Childers is, but he's an amazing attorney. He became very popular because he fought the mask mandate during COVID in Florida. He won. He also ended up representing, what's that guy, under the journalist guy, the one who did the undercover OMG? James O'Keefe. He also thank you. He also represented him in some lawsuit. So anyway, he's a heavy hitter, right? So anyway, we went ahead and we filed our petition or whatever, and we waited. So while we were waiting, let me see, some weird things happened. Actually, we started negotiations. I'll go to the next slide. Sorry. This was Jeff Childers. Before you pass to the next slide. So the DOE got in touch with us and said, we want to have a settlement negotiation. So they came to town, we sat down, we had a conversation with them, and basically, they weren't going to budge on anything. It was very unsatisfactory. So like, all right, we'll see you in court. You know, this is not working, we'll see you in court. The court date was set for some time in the summer, and this was back in like November, right? So there's then this long period of just kind of waiting and seeing what's happening. It was a very difficult time for me as well, just because I'm ostracized from work. They took away my summer teaching assignment, so it's like a third of my wages were taken away from me, and nobody talks to us. We're not invited to potluck dinners anymore in the neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. It was a very dark time. But anyway, weird things started happening in the spring. So you can go to the next slide. So Trump won the election. He appointed Marco Rubio to Secretary of State, which meant Ashley Moody, who was our Attorney General, got moved over to the Senator position, which opened the Attorney General position, and James Uthmeyer got appointed Attorney General. At the same time, Commissioner Diaz, who was in charge of the K-12 education in Florida, he took in a position as the president role at the University of West Florida. Stasi Kamoutsas was then appointed as the commissioner. Stasi used to be general counsel for the Department of Education. He was also in DeSantis's general counsel or something like that. Both of these guys are powerhouses, right? And then just hit like that, yeah. Then they announce a joint endeavor between them where the Attorney General creates an Office of Parental Rights. And in this Office of Parental Rights, you can report objectionable instructional or library materials. I'm like, well, wait a minute. This is what I've been trying to do, and nobody's listening to me. And now all of a sudden, there's an office that's going to do this. Like, what's going on, right? Go to the next slide. Yeah. On top of that, they call to task Hillsborough School District for their inappropriate books. They make the superintendent of Hillsborough appear at their June Department of Education meeting to basically explain why they have these inappropriate books in their school district. Can you play that video?
Just read that, please. I'm not gonna. This material is not appropriate. I'm not gonna read that aloud, and that's why it was made unavailable for our students.
But you trust your media specialist, who obviously read. This is paragraph 1 of this book. This isn't like buried deep down in chapter 6 or something like that. This is the first paragraph, which I don't want to read either, Superintendent. I think you and I both understand this is not only talking about sexual activity. The author refers to having her hands being handcuffed. And this was in the library of a school in Hillsborough County. I mean, what media specialist thought that was appropriate for students to read?
It is inappropriate material. Moving forward, these materials will not be in our libraries for the next school year. That's why I made it unavailable.
Okay, you can stop it.
I will assure you that.
You can go back. So anyway, as you can see, they read them the Riot Act appropriately, and they basically say you have to get rid of these books. They also start circulating to all the school district a list of 56 books that were deemed inappropriate, and they had to be removed. Now, I said, well, what about Alachua County? They have all these books. Well, I found out behind the scenes that somebody was removing them in Alachua County. They just weren't doing it publicly, right? Yeah, so some of them are being removed. But then at the same time, just a month later, they find another inappropriate book in this guy in Hillsborough School District. And they're like, do you need to come talk to us again? He's like, no, no, no. He finally takes out the book. So I'm like, all right, what is going on here now in Florida? So you can go to the next slide. Oh, yeah, and then this too. So DOE is beginning to crack down on school districts about their inappropriate books. Well, what do school districts do? Well, what does Alachua County do? They partner with the Lynx bookstore. The Lynx bookstore is now showing up at school events to give out their books that are highly inappropriate. And if you go to the next slide, the Lynx bookstore states that their intention is to distribute challenged and banned books widely in Florida. If they're banned, they're not banned. You can go buy them at Barnes & Noble's. The Lynx bookstore has them. They're clearly not banned. What it means is books that are inappropriate for children, they are going to go give to children. And our school district is partnering with them. The Alachua Children's Trust, which takes your tax money, and you don't have a choice about giving them money, is supporting the Lynx bookstore to now distribute these books to your children. They're also supported by and partnering with the Alachua County School District, Visit Gainesville, UF, Lastinger Center. So anyway, we got that bubbling and going on. Now you can go to the next slide. So around this time, I get a text message from somebody saying like, hey, there's this person, Sam Sorbo, who's collecting stories. I know I'm way over time. I need 5 more minutes, maybe 10. I don't know. Sorry, just so much. Anyway, I get a text. Sam Sorbo is collecting stories about parents who have been persecuted by school districts. And I was like, oh, you think she'd be interested in mine? They're like, I don't know, send her an email. Well, send them an email. I didn't know Sam was a girl, so anyway. I send Sam an email, and she's like, oh, can you copy Kelly? Kelly's a guy. They totally had me confused. But anyway, Kelly Walker and Sam Sorbo, you may know Sam Sorbo. She's married to Kevin Sorbo, Hercules from the 90s. Huge proponent for homeschool education, etc. So they're collecting stories because they went to the White House and did a press conference with Representative Ogles and Ed Martin, I think that's his name, at the DOJ, with this group that they have, Parents Demanding Justice, where they want to ask Trump to do an executive order which will provide restitution and remuneration, I think is the word, to families who have been persecuted by the DOJ through the school districts based on Merrick Garland's letter designating parents who speak up at school district meetings as being domestic terrorists. So, okay, here's my story. So my story ended up in their dossier, which was turned into Trump. Stone, what's his first name? Roger Stone. He personally handed it to Trump. Oh, I think that's on, you can go to the next slide. Yeah, Roger Stone handed it to them. And then Sam invited me to show up on her podcast. So I did a podcast with her to talk about everything that had happened, everything I just shared with you. So, okay, next slide. Where am I at? So Hulk Hogan dies. Our school district chair, Sarah Rockwell, decides it's a good thing to post on social media that good, one less MAGA in the world. That gets public attention, ends up on TikTok, lives at TikTok. And next slide. Mr. Jeremy Klepper shows up at the school board meeting and speaks out about how inappropriate it was that Sarah Rockwell would say that. Miss Tina Certain, our school board member, tells the police to escort him out. The lawyer stops them, but his First Amendment right had already been violated. Both of these stories go national. Next slide. So Stasi Kamutsas, our commissioner, sends a letter to Alachua County, basically telling Sarah Rockwell if she ever thinks about renewing her teaching certificate, he's not doing it, and that they have to show up at the next State Board of Education meeting to answer for their abuse of parental rights. Next slide. So, hey, DOE, are we negotiating now? So we reopened negotiations. We cancel our hearing with them, and we say, let's sit back down at the table. The sands have shifted here. It seems like maybe we're on the same page. So they come, they sit down. We have a negotiation conversation on Friday. I thought it went well. The following Wednesday was when Tina Certain, Sarah Rockwell had to go in front of the Department of Education. So I decided, well, I'm going to go. It's in St. Augustine. I'm going to show up, and I'm going to see what happens. And maybe I'll make a statement. So go ahead. They have the meeting. They call them to task. They say, listen, this is a toxic culture that you got going on. And I go up to have my 1 minute to say, it is a toxic culture. Let me tell you the things that have been happening to me. So I share with them a few things that had happened to me in the past. Go ahead. And you can play it. My son, 6 years old, was prohibited from sitting next to his friend on the school bus because a parent objected to my perspectives on book challenges. My older son's history teacher allowed students to label him a Nazi-phile simply for his interest in history and participation in ROTC. She later nominated my son as the most likely to become a dictator and had his classmates vote on it and try to force him to the front of the class to receive the certificate, which he rightly refused, all because of his conservative values and our perspectives.
Thank you.
Yeah.
James?
So that went viral. So I guess I am good at going viral. I had no idea. There was like 30 speakers. That was my 1 minute, and I just highlighted a couple things that had happened, and that one just blew up. As you can see, next slide. It's everywhere. Next slide. Next thing you know, I'm on the Ingram angle. I'm at, or back a slide. Yeah, OAN News, the Daily Mail in the UK. So it's everywhere. I need to learn how to wield this power so I can do it on demand. They call me the next day, the DOE, and they're like, can you substantiate your allegations? I'm like, wow, I actually took really good notes that school year. I can send them all to you. So I had all the emails because that teacher not only gave him this certificate, that was a culminating event. There had been multiple issues starting from week 1 with propaganda hanging up in her classroom, pride flags, BLM posters, whatnot, which I wrote an email and complained about. Then there was introduced in the World War II unit, and she said there's always someone who takes Hitler's side. Some kid says that's going to be Thomas. She's like, ha ha ha, funny you say that. Another kid in another class said it would be Thomas. My son's like, what the heck? Why? I hate the Nazis. Like, why? So we had a sit-down meeting. So all documented. Some of my best literature were in those emails. I did not know why. I do now. So anyway, I got invited to Dr. Duke's show. Dr. Duke's. The commissioner writes out a letter basically saying probable cause was found that the teacher indeed violated codes of ethics and that her teaching certificate should be stripped. I don't know if it needs to go that far. I don't know, but there was a lot of problems that class year. And she's on administrative leave currently. But then we get all the attacks, right? So it feels like you're winning, and then you got to deal with all the attacks. So next slide. So then we start getting social media posts like this. I don't even want to read it, but your son is a effing lunatic. He's evil. He's a Nazi-phile. I hope he rots in hell. I'm glad I voted him future dictator. He's a horrible kid, horrible person. Stop playing the victim. Your son was a well-known neo-Nazi. You knew your son was a neo-Nazi, so did everyone else. Next slide. A local activist who's crazy but fed information by the school district, which I could prove to you if you need me to. But it's kind of off the slide there, but he posted anti-Semitic garbage on his social medias. A person responds, yeah, I recall him always wearing that Israeli shirt to school. And she's like, yeah, not at all surprising. So, yeah. Next slide. My Nazi, anti-Semitic son is probably the most pro-Jew, pro-Zionist, non-Jewish kid that you'll ever meet. And this is the Israeli shirt that he'd wear to school all the time, which clearly justifies him being called a Nazi-phile. Next slide. And People went as far back to take pictures they found of him online from when he was in 4th grade. And he was wearing a Dan TDM shirt. If anyone knows who Dan TDM is, he's a YouTuber who does Roblox. But the person who's making this image clearly doesn't know who Dan TDM is, so she just looks up TDM and comes up with some multiplayer game shooter thing. Not at all what his shirt is symbolizing, but she writes and posts this on social media, "Team Deathmatch Mommy, child grooming whore. Why don't you quit your job and help your son leave his online cult?" She then makes this image. My son never played that game on Roblox. And that is a picture of my son. He did have a Yushchenko hat. He has all this historical memorabilia, and somebody at our house had taken a picture of him and shared it with the media, so he's guilty of having memorabilia. But communist, like that should be on his side, their side, right? Anyway, GHS hosted another walkout, so don't say gay, now save Miss Watts. They announced it on their bulletin boards. Next slide. They announced it on their bulletin boards. They carry signs calling him a Nazi. Yeah, so anyway, I gotta speed this up. How old is your son? 17, but it was 15 when the incident happened, and it just got reported. I had emailed the principal, the teacher, the school board when it happened, and nobody did anything, which is why now it was getting action. He's 17 now. The person behind a lot of this, behind the petition, behind the walkout, is an ex-girlfriend that he dated for like 3 weeks. And she, for whatever reason, is loving the attention. And she posted, "Look, I found evidence that he wanted to be a dictator." Next slide. She includes a screenshot of when she broke up with him. And she says, somebody says, "Oh, he's a good guy, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "Listen, I'm not moving to Afghanistan for him to become a dictator. I'm staying here in the US to become an FBI agent, so I'm breaking up with him." My son read that and goes, "Diplomat. I told her I wanted to be a diplomat, and I could end up in Afghanistan. And she's too stupid to know the difference between a dictator and a diplomat." And she's doubling down that he wanted to be a dictator in Afghanistan, because that's a real career choice for a 15-year-old boy, right? Especially a Protestant white boy from Florida. They can aspire to be a dictator in Afghanistan. The Taliban takes applications in the late fall. I mean, anyway. All right, so let's speed this up. Fortunately, my son, 4 days after this whole thing broke out, all the hate mail, threats, etc., he was able to get out of here and fly to Romania, escape to a post-Soviet country to get away from the woke mob of Gainesville. He's training. It's his dictatorship in training. He's been going to the Ceausescu Museum. Indeed. Yeah. As I'm leaving. Okay, so speeding up, and I'll just wrap it up. So then, as you all know, not too long ago, next slide, I find out Charlie Kirk got shot by my son, who's watching it from Romania. And he's just got shot. This brings it all very serious to us, because we're being called Nazis, dictators, fascists, the same things that Charlie Kirk was being called, and now he's dead. So, next slide. Of course, our school board thought they'd make comments on that. So now Tina Certain says he was an uneducated white boy and shouldn't be glorified. So that goes viral, again. That screenshot with the highlighted, the Tina part, I may have made that screenshot. I shared it with somebody who shared it with somebody who now it's everywhere again. So again, I have this talent that I don't know how to harness, I guess. So anyway, they're now being called in front of the school board, the State Board of Educators. Again, I'm hearing conversation that DeSantis may get involved in this one at this point, because this is just going too far and it's too much. Thursday night, I went to the GOP fundraiser in Alachua County. Mr. Keith Perry, again, next slide, next. Mr. Keith Perry coming in clutch, introduced me to Byron Donalds, introduced me to Kat Kamek. Mr. Tim Martin, Mayor of Newberry, head of the GOP, called me up on the stage to thank me for my service in Alachua County. But what's really great is Kat Kamek said, "I don't get involved with local politics, but Mama Cat does." And she's like, I've had enough, and this is going to be my new pet project. It's focused on Alachua County School District. Yeah. Yes. Byron Donalds from the stage in his speech pointed to me and said my name. And he said, I don't know, I was too flustered to know what he said. But it was positive. So I emailed Sam Sorbo. I was like, hey, you may have some allies in Congress to help with your Parents Demanding Justice Alliance initiative. So she emailed Kat Kamek today. I was copied on it. So we'll see. Where's that taking us? I don't know. So I'm really wrapping this up. I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm wrapping this up. Next slide. So where are we now? What are the next steps? I have no idea. I had no idea I'd be here last year at this time with all these things that have happened, right? All I can do is put on my seatbelt, and I can say, God, I'm just acknowledging you. You direct my paths. Here I am, Lord. Here I am. So when you want me to speak up, because I know I have no power over making things go viral, that's all God. He just says, go speak. Next thing you know, my son says that I am going to be a thing of legend in Alachua County. They're going to talk about me over the campfire of the boogeyman Marull when she came to town, and sometimes it feels that way. But through it all, come back to the theme of tonight about being steadfast for Christ. It's been a very challenging, I make light of it because what else am I going to do? It's been a very challenging 2 years for me. But the one scripture that really spoke to me was about putting on the whole armor of God and praying. All kinds of prayers and requests. But I always used to think of the armor of God, like I learned about it when I was a kid in Bible school or whatever, and kind of interchangeable. Like it didn't really matter if it was the breastplate of salvation or if it was the sword of righteousness. I just thought it was a cute little metaphor. But more lately, as thinking about it, and I just want to highlight some of the ones that really have hit home for me to share with you. Now, I'm not a Bible scholar more than the average Christian who reads their Bible as much as possible. So maybe a pastor can help me think this through. But when I think of the belt of truth, your belt keeps your pants on. If you don't know what's true, you're going to be caught with your pants around your ankles. You need to know what is true. You need to know not just what's true in the Bible, but what's true everywhere. You need to know, is it true that they're putting these books in your kids' libraries? Is it true that they want them there? Is it true that Charlie Kirk was shot for telling the gospel? Are these things true? Like, you need to know so that you can fight. Oh, it's a national issue. This is national, and it's actually going international. I know in Argentina, these types of things are spreading. In Spain, they're spreading. So the belt of truth has been really important to me. Like, I need to know what I'm talking about. I have to do research. I have to study. I have to prepare. I have to know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I'm caught with my pants down, right? The breastplate of righteousness. When they come after you with those attacks, those images that they take and they put it out there, don't give them fodder. Living as righteous of a life as you possibly can protects you because you're not giving them fodder. They have to make it up. But if you do have stuff in your closet, they are going to exploit it, and you're going to be weakened by it. The shield of faith. When they're calling my son a Nazi, or when they're saying, oh, that one lady, she was saying that I was having a sexually incestuous relationship with my son Thomas. Yeah, and that she supposedly read an email that I had written to the school complaining that he's depressed and in his room and whatever, and it's because of our enmeshed relationship. So they say horrible things about you, and then you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. But then you're like, no, I have the shield of faith. I believe in a good world. I believe in a good God, and I believe that there's a reason why he has me doing this, and I'll just shield myself from these attacks through my faith. It's my faith that gives me the endurance to keep going, and it is a shield. It really is a shield. I'm like, oh, good metaphor. They were right on that one. It wasn't interchangeable. And then the other one, the last two I don't have as strong in my head of how it relates to my situation, but the helmet of salvation was making, now I hear a lot of people that's defending your thoughts, knowing how to see the world, et cetera, and I'm sure that's true. But I immediately thought about it. You put on a helmet to protect your head when you fall off your bike, when you're getting, whatever, you're on a motorcycle. Charlie Kirk had a helmet on. He got shot in the head, neck. But he had a helmet of salvation because he went right into the next world. And that is what the helmet of salvation is, that I am not afraid of what they can do to my body. He was not afraid of what they can do to his body. They were afraid of what they could do to his soul. And the helmet of salvation gives you the assurance that you can kill this body. And I know I have a target on my back, and I am a little bit afraid. We got new Ring cameras in our house. And, you know, my husband's now like, maybe we do need to get a gun. You know, like, I am afraid, but I am so grounded that come what may, I know where I'm going. And that is the helmet of salvation, and that is how I can stand steadfast in this fight. So that's all I got for you. I know it was more than you wanted. Thank you. And just one last pitch, because I lost my summer teaching assignment, I created a side company. Next slide, next slide. A side company where I offer language services. So if you have any homeschool kids that need to learn Spanish, I need to make money.
Well, wasn't that incredible?